Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reacticon number 4. So as you can see, I'm sitting in the jungle, and it's a little bit of a different vibe, a different setting than earlier years. But yeah, that's kind of like due to COVID. Just to open up the day, we've got an exciting program to get started with things. But just bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen for a second. Here we go. All right. So welcome to Reacticon. We've got a nice zoo lined up of all kinds of speakers. It's going to be a wild ride, I guess. I've been telling actually some people offline as well that I've been overdoing myself a little bit, and together with the team, because Reacticon number 4 is going to be larger than all of the other events. We have 4 different days spread across Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Every day, kind of like with its own little topic. Today is really going to be about Magento / Vue Storefront / a couple of other things, but it's kind of opening up the zoo, opening up different technologies. And in total, we're going to dive into Shopware tomorrow, PWA Studio on Wednesday, and Hufa is going to be the last one in line, but definitely not the least one. We've got 31 speakers lined up. I'm not going to introduce them all, but every single day, we're simply going to run through the whole program and introduce everyone who's going to talk. In earlier years, we used also a live stream on YouTube, which you hopefully see right now. But we also kept a little chat in there. But this time, we're trying to drive everyone into the Slack space of Reacticon. If you didn't join Slack yet, just then navigate over to the Reacticon site, and then actually one of the primary links there should be leading you into the Slack sign up. And that's basically where the whole discussion and the Q&A and the vibe, the buzz is going to happen. So before we actually slowly dive into the program itself, I want to say thanks to all of the different sponsors. So first of all, Hufa Themes is one of the main sponsors. So they also have their own day on Thursday, but they see themselves also as making Reacticon possible, not only through the content but also on a financial level. So many thanks to Hufa. Also a big shout out to Shopware as a main sponsor. And again, Shopware is also responsible for day number 2. So together with them, we got a nice little program lined up. Okuva is also a main sponsor. So big thanks to you guys as well. It's a hosting provider if you don't know them, but especially their cloud hosting based upon AWS is definitely something to give a try. And then last but not least, the Shipper HQ company. And if you know the Magento community, then you know Shipper HQ as well. So many thanks for making this event possible. And also, likewise, I want to thank you, the support sponsors and the community sponsors. Basically, that's MaxSurf, Splendid, the Magento Association, Adobe, not that unfamiliar, hopefully, and XDN, the Extension Developer Network. So we're going to go into the program slowly. The opening of this Reacticon is not going to be that long. I simply want to give the word to Roy, but not right now. We still actually have a little bit of time left, but at 13:20. So in about 10 minutes time, we're going to kickstart the first talk with Roy Duineveld with a talk upon Rapides. So far so good. This is the introduction. We're going to go back to the normal slideshow for a few moments more, and then actually in a few minutes we're going to start the first official talk of day number 1, Reacticon number 4. So stay tuned for more. See you back in a few moments. All right. So welcome everyone again. Well, after the short little introduction of the whole day, we're actually now ready to do the thing. Reacticon number 4, day number 1, talk number 1, together with Roy. Hi, Roy.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you. Yeah, so actually, with your talk, we're going to dive into things right away, and actually quite deep. Actually, after your talk, we're going to have another talk with explaining a little bit about how to optimize Magento, its front end, and how to be disappointed about that everything. And I think you're well familiar with that yourself as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where you came up with the smarter solution involving Laravel.
Yep.
But yeah, instead of giving away too much, I would say, yeah, go ahead, share your screen and take it away.
All right, there we go. So that should do it. So Rapides, a headless Magento front end with Laravel View and reactive search. And let's start with me. I'm Roy Duineveld. I'm a developer at Just Better, which is an agency in Alkmaar. And I'm the founder of Rapides, and you can check out my website and follow me on Twitter. But let's go further with Rapides itself, the story behind Rapides. So I'm working with Magento for many years and switched to Laravel because it's a cool new technology, and custom applications are a little bit more my thing than e-commerce if you work with it for many years. So but at our agency are working with Magento and Laravel, and the developer happiness with Laravel is much higher. So we started to think about merging them together, and we had some issues with Magento, like the development speed is not very fast in comparison with Laravel. Like the XML layout system can be handy, but not always. Knockout.js and Require.js are not really fun to work with, and you're forced to use the whole Magento abstraction. And these days, it's, I think, easier to find Laravel developers instead of Magento developers, and even students around here are getting trained with Laravel at school. So for the future of developers, it's I think easier. The other thing is if you're going to work with Magento and Laravel and in the e-commerce system, you need some fast filtering. And we used Algolia in the past, and Algolia is really fast with filtering, but can be expensive. And we needed something free, as we like to make things open source. So we're searching around and found reactive search, and reactive search is it's some kind of Algolia, but it's using no custom indexing system, but Elasticsearch. And Elasticsearch is also a requirement for Magento. So reactive search it is. And we tried to play around with it and hacking around and adding some product data from Magento in the Elasticsearch database to show product information, filter with it, etc. And it really started with a proof of concept. And the first idea was also to have the product pages and the category pages in Laravel, and everything else we wanted to route that to Magento. But what you're getting if you're just using a product and category page in Laravel and everything else in Magento, you need to have different headers. So we were working with a components, and it was the session issues, and so the proof of concept failed to only use Laravel for the product and category pages. So we thought let's move on. Let's build everything in Laravel. So not only the product and category pages, but also the account part, the checkout, everything else. So we went from that idea to a full headless solution. And yeah, the things you need is product data. So it's a while back we started with this. And these days we have GraphQL, etc. And it's super awesome. But those days there was just the database and a pretty crappy API to get product information, and it's not that fast. So our first idea was to add some Laravel models on top of those tables to get product information. And the easiest way to do that is add a model to the flat tables and to get that information. But yeah, we were playing around with that, and we had product pages and the category pages with reactive search and so on, so on, so on. We started developing a full headless solution, and yeah, the result of that is what we have now for a demo. And it's a super simple front end, but we have almost everything implemented, like category pages. For example, the bags, the reviews are there, and if you filter, it's really fast, and that's what we wanted. So the product pages, and we can add it to the cart, and the checkouts implemented, and yeah, it's working really nice. Let's go back to the sheet. There we go. So why Rapides? It's easy as we're using Laravel. So you've got the ORM system, Eloquent, blade templates, the components, routing, middlewares, etc. The speeds, you don't need to use the Magento abstraction. Testing can be hell in Magento, but with Laravel, you've got a PHP unit for unit and feature testing, but also Laravel Task to have some browser tests. I can show you really quick with just one command. We're testing currently the core of Rapides, which opens the browser, adds a product to the cart, and continues to switch the amount of products, and that test completed, and add products and go the checkout, add some credentials, and it's going through the whole process. And writing these tests is really easy, but I'll cancel this for now. Otherwise it will take way too long. So testing is something we wanted and give to our users so they can work on from this. Freedom is another thing. Freedom in the sense of the front end, you're free to use whatever you want. Currently, we're using Tailwind CSS for the front end, but if you don't like Tailwind, no problem. Use Bootstrap or custom Sass, LESS, whatever you want. But also with the data, we're using a mix of querying directly GraphQL and the API. But if you want to join another system, like some headless CMS, or get information from a Magento module, which just have a API, you can use really whatever you want. Just have the freedom to do that, and not forced to make use of everything like Magento does in some sense. The next thing is no varnish. You can use varnish, but it's not a requirement. If you want Magento, a fast Magento installation in production, varnish is a requirement. And out of the box, Rapides performs around 100 milliseconds. So that's fast enough for most users, but you can put varnish in front of it if you want. What is it, 40 ms or something. The deployments needed to go faster. So with Magento, you've got the compilation part, which is not needed anymore. So the deployments are going much faster. And because not everything is routed through Magento just used as a backend for the API and the GraphQL endpoints. It's easier to scale, and you don't need a very big server for Magento anymore. So the hosting costs will go down. So before we dive into some code, let's start with a small FAQ. Query the database. A lot of people will think that's not a really good idea, but as said earlier, we started with it as a proof of concept, and querying the database was at that time the fastest option. These days we have got GraphQL in Magento, so we're moving on to use GraphQL for a lot of things. A lot of parts in Rapides are using GraphQL, and we're only using the database directly for product information from a index command, and the product pages, everything else is headless using GraphQL or the API. Vue.js, no Alpine. Alpine is awesome. Alpine is inspired by Vue.js, and we had reactive search in Rapides. So yeah, Vue.js was already there, so why don't not use it? So Vue.js. Tailwind, as said earlier, you can use whatever you want. You like it or you hate it. Use it or don't use it. We just use it for the basic views. And as an example, you can work on with that or swap it out for something else. The PWA, yeah, it's headless. It's not a PWA, but you can make it into a PWA. But do you really need the offline experience? We don't need it. Maybe we can work on it in the future, but for now, our customers and the community didn't need it. So no PWA for now. Then the scores from Lighthouse and PageSpeed. It's with most solutions, it's completely up to the developer how it performs. As if you put Google Tag Manager in it with a lot of external libraries, yeah, that will decrease the scores, but with no crazy tag manager scripts, etc. A score of 100, 4 times 100 is really easy to achieve. We did it in the past with a proof of concept for a customer. Next up, the comparison with Huva, Vue Storefront, PWA Studio, etc. Huva is really a Magento theme. You're staying within Magento and the whole ecosystem. Vue Storefront is a PWA, but using Vue, and PWA Studio is React. So it's a completely different stack. And what makes Rapides is we're staying at mostly at PHP. The Magento developers who are going a long way from Magento 1 to Magento 2, etc. There are still Magento developers, no React developers or front-end developers. So we like PHP, and with Laravel, the PHP part is moving a good direction, and we like to stay with PHP. So that's why we started with Rapides, and that's why Rapides is not really comparable with Huva or Vue Storefront or PWA Studio or any other solution which is out there. And yeah, it's a beta product currently, as we did not tag a 1.0 release yet. But we had a proof of concept running in production earlier this year. With the COVID outbreak, the shops needed a pickup location, as people were allowed to go to the store to pick things up, but were not allowed to go in the store. So there needed a little change, but that lasted not very long, as the rules from the government here in the Netherlands changed. So that shop is not online anymore, but we're working with that same customer to get the whole web shop running on Rapides. I hope I've already answered some questions which will pop up after this talk. So now time to for Rapides itself. Let's fly to Rapides. I want to show you some features we implemented, some packages, and how we're working with Rapides. The first thing is the configuration, and let's go to my editor. And let's close this out. And the configuration is just a configuration file with some information from Elasticsearch to query. We've got the Magento URL, which is needed. And so we've got the checkout steps, and you can customize a lot of things if you don't like the routes from Rapides. As the default routes are just the product pages, the categories, the checkout, the account part, etc. If you don't like that, you can disable it, and from there you can implement it however you want. The same for controllers. If you don't want to use the default controllers, just use your own. The models can be swapped out. We've got widgets are implemented from Magento, so each widget has its own class. The content variables can be switched, and you're free to use whatever you want from the configuration. The next thing is in the documentation. Here we've got some eventy filters. You can, that's a little system from inspired by WordPress to have some kind of filter system like WordPress in Laravel, so you can hook up with hook into products, indexes, etc. And we've got some few events you can use. We've got some directives to get information from Magento, like a configuration, or if you want to render a block, you can do very easily parse the content, which will go through the content part we add in the configuration somewhere here. So the content variables, which will parse media, stores, and widgets, etc., and widget locations. And blade components, which are very nice. Just a prefixed component like an input field. Just give it a name, and the hood it will render. Where is it? Over here. This component, you just give it a name, and everything else will be populated, and you can choose your own label or whatever you want. The main idea from this is to have everything in components, so you don't need to repeat all your Tailwind classes every time, just have it at one place. But it can be overridden or added if you want to add some margins or whatever. And we've got also components for the product list. So you can render, for example, let's see if we've got some here, a product list very easily in a slider, or just give it some SKUs or IDs, and you can just add that to your HTML, and you've got a nice product list. Another thing we're using is for GraphQL, some really nice components to get information. For example, we've got a country select with a view component. You just give it the query and you get the data, and that's rendered in a select box. To get information, we've got also a GraphQL mutation component. And so we've got some handy stuff you can use to get information from GraphQL. And let's check the slide again. The indexer. To get all the data in Elasticsearch for rapid filtering, you need to index all your products in Elasticsearch. That can be done manually through a scheduler or via a webhook if you got some reason to hook into Magento with a module, so it will be indexed automatically, for example. Some packages we implemented a lot in for the customer. We're building a webshop for, but some easy parts to show how this is done is, for example, the MST labels label. extension, which is a extension to add product labels on top of products. And as you can see here in the picture, to add these on a product page, you can just include a few or on a category page. But how this is working is really simple. From the service provider, there a little bit zoom, you can add a scope to the product, and from this scope we can join extra information from the database. So we're selecting here all the information we need from the MST labels extension, and that's added to the product object before it's getting indexed, and we're casting that to a object as it's an object and mapping that to a flattened type for Elasticsearch. With just this, the information is added to the product information and getting indexed, and that's how we can use that in the front end. And if you go there, for example, on the product page, we're just looping through the master label object, which was added earlier. We're sorting that by the priority and showing those labels, and that's just it. It's really easy to add extra information to products. Another extension is the Image Plaza block extension we implemented, which is also really simple. It's just we've got some routes for the block overview and the blog post itself. We have a model on top of the table to get the information, and that's it. Then you can use whatever you want, and super fast. We could just use their GraphQL extension if they have it. I'm not really sure, but querying the database is much faster to get this information, as it won't change very much. And with GraphQL, it's going through Magento, and this way, yeah, it's way faster to get all the information and just render it really easy with some simple views. Let's check the last extension I want to show you, a payment provider, which is just using a hook to hook into some events. There's a credentials saved event, which will generate a payment token and save that. And when the payment is saved, it will start the transaction and redirect you to the payment page. And that's just what's necessary to implement a payment provider. In this case, we've got also a return route, which will just get the information and render a few. Let's see over here, resources views for every state we're getting back from the payment provider. So yeah, I hope I show you how easy it is to implement some packages. It's not necessary for all packages, but yeah, it's pretty simple. Where we're currently working on is Ranzijn Tuin en Dier. That's a web shop in the Netherlands with a lot of stores. That's going really good with. Like, not sure how I'm in with the time, but I can show you a really the front end is currently in progress, but if we go, for example, to the checkout, let's move this around. Let's go. If we add this product to the cart, there's a complete custom checkout. Let's try to build this in Magento. That's a pretty heavy task, but with Rapidash, you're free to build it however you want. So if we add some information, we go to the next. It's still a test environment, not working currently, but to build something like this with custom steps, with all the information rendered differently, that's a pretty big task in Magento. And with Rapidash, this is for us really easy to work on. The other thing we're working on is a implementation with Strapi. Strapi is a headless CMS, and that way we can we have an external system with all the content like blogs, the homepage, etc. So people can drag and drop very easily all the information. Moving forward, the 1.0 release and 3 more projects, yeah, from there on we hope to have more people joining along and working on Rapides, as it's open source and free for everyone to use. So thank you. Try it, rapides.io, check out the docs, explore the demo, follow us, and if you have any questions or want to work with us, check out GitHub or Slack. Any questions?
Well, yeah, so awesome, awesome presentation. Thank you. Actually, could you go out of the screen sharing, or I can?
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So, yeah, Roy. First of all, I'm impressed. But I think actually a lot of people will always say that as soon as a front end like this one pops up, there's always going to be doubts with things like third-party extensions. So actually, one of the questions that came in already is asked by Iraki. And he or she was wondering how are widgets rendered and parsed through the Rapides front end. So I think that's a reference to the widgets of the Rapides widget starting with X dash Rapides. So how does that work? Is that JavaScript? Is it PHP based? It's
PHP based, but you can add JavaScript if you want. If I can share my screen again,
I can go ahead.
Really quick.
Perfect.
There we go. The idea with that is, as shown in the configuration, there's a content directive. So if you're working in a Blade component view somewhere, you can, for example, if you have a product description, you can do this, and everything in the description using variables will be parsed. So at content will go through this list. And from there on, the media is parsed with regex, and so we've got also a widget content directive, which checks the widget classes within the configuration. So then you're getting here, for example, let's move this around. For example, a block widget is just getting the information from the object and rendering the content of it and giving it back. And the same for product lists. From a product list, we're extracting all the information from what kind of type it is. So we're getting the list of SKUs or IDs, and we're passing that through the product list part. And from there, the product list, my laptop is, no. Let's see over here. And from there on, it's added. So the condition values containing these SKUs from the products, you can add a title, and this is rendering a product list, and that's the component from earlier. And that's rendering a reactive base list from the reactive search part. So with this, let's give an example over here on these products over here are, this is actually a widget in Magento in a CMS block, and with, yeah, it's rendered like this. So yeah, widgets are implemented, and widgets work out of the box, but we did not implement all widgets currently, just a block and a product list as we needed those. Everything else can be implemented, just add a feature request, and we will look into it. So that's how currently the widgets are working.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer as well. And that's actually kind of like leading into the second question that Raki also had. How are you handling updates of third-party modules? But I guess that it simply depends, right? So you were demoing a couple of third-party extensions, but you were using them for the backend usage in the Magento admin panel.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dumping just the information right there in the database, and that's where you extract that same information and build whatever you want to build.
It's completely up to the up to the developer. If you're using a implementation we built from Rapides, like I showed the MST labels extension, for example. If you update it in Magento, and something changes, that's also needs to change in the package for Rapides. So if that's the case, we will update it. If you build the package yourself, you have to update it yourself, and it's up to you how you use it. For example, the MST labels extension is using the database directly. So if some tables change, you need to change that. If you're using GraphQL and the query changes or the mutation or whatever, you have to change that. So
yeah, and it's of course like depending upon the architecture of such a third-party extension. It's depending upon how often the database is going to change, and whether or not you're going to depend upon an additional GraphQL query and mutation. So at first, like you said, personally, my response was like, "Oh my God, are they hacking the database of Magento?"
Mm-hmm.
But actually, once you start to think about it, it kind of makes sense, because you don't need to mess around with the front end classes of Magento, which are overly complex. But you can simply just extract the information that you need. But I think still the downside or the challenge for you guys would be to kind of like support core features. So earlier you gave a little bit of a demo of a product page, but that's still excluding things like swatches and configurable products and things like that.
Currently, only simple downloadable and configurable products are implemented, as that's the demand currently. If any other product type is needed, we'll look into it. But swatches are implemented in, but not enabled in the demo. So if you see the filters on the demo page, you get nice color swatches. But on the product page, it's currently just a select drop down, but there's pull request currently open to which implemented that part. So if you choose blue, the image change. If you choose green, you see the green image. That part is implemented. So swatches are implemented, and we're just looking what we need. We're building currently, but if anybody else needs something, create an issue, and we'll look into it.
Yeah, and I think the proposal is also not that you would choose Rapides because of support for thousands of extensions, which are badly written maybe anyway. But I think the proposal is much more that you guys are offering a lean way of building things within Laravel. And if you're already sold upon Laravel and you like Tailwind and you like Vue, then actually Rapides could be for you as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's kind of like the point that listeners are going to remember as well. And I think actually no other question was popping up. I had a couple of questions on my own, but you already answered them. There was actually a really exciting kickstart of Reacticon. So thank you so much. That was nice. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, if you still want to have a couple of questions for Roy, Roy's there in the Slack space. You can find him, locate him, fire away, have a personal chat with him. And hopefully people are just going to head over to the GitHub space anyway to contribute and make it a larger success.
Yeah, or just check it out, try it sometime. And if you're into Laravel, it's definitely a cool project to look at.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is actually in about 10 minutes time is actually me and Ruud. with a talk like I mentioned earlier about the old front end and still trying to optimize that. And my voice is getting lower and lower and or lower if I need to explain all of that, because I'm not sure if with all of the new front ends whether that story is really worth it. But we'll see how far we can get explaining how to optimize Luma anyway. But yeah, so stay tuned. Thanks again, Roy, for being in there, and everyone else. Let's see each other back in about 10 minutes time.